Hi everyone, this is Karak from ACG, and today I'm shading my eyes against the light of the sun as I return to you from the darkest deep to tell you about the game Fall of the Dungeon Guardians. It's a game in the same vein as, say, Grimrock for PC. Fall of the Dungeon Guardians throws a few conventions of this first-person grid-based genre onto the mud and calls it names, and then asks you what you thought of it. Make a party go into the deep dark of imitation dwarf mines and the Lord of the Rings, and see what happens. But is Fall of the Dungeon Guardians really just a quick and easy attempt to garner some cash for a title that bears more than a passing resemblance to the titles it follows? Or is it new in its offerings, and do they elevate and change the genre to the tune of paying $19.99 for a passage into its dark depths? I say we sit back, grab ourselves some mead, and check it out and see. As always, if you like the review, maybe subscribe, maybe tell others. As with this game, it's all about choice. So here's the review for Fall of the Dungeon Guardians. Count Von Count Sesame Street queuing battle systems, the worst possible first day for a prison guard since the Attica prison riots, and levels that are like mazes within mazes on top of more mazes made by a madman who makes mazes. So let's do this. Graphics are up first. I have to say, at times, Guardians is a bit hit and miss. The overall package and locations are actually pretty good, and though there has been a bit of contention over the design being very, very close to Grimrock's in texturing and setup, if they are fine with it, I'm fine with it, and they appear to be. Now, creature designs are actually good, with a leaning towards the more ugly utilitarian fantasy, though there is some generic Lord of the Rings stuff rubbed up in there to keep people grounded in what to expect. Spiders look dreadfully nasty, while lumbering orcs look brutish and highly detailed. Flying eyes look like, well, sort of like flying eyes, and the main bosses look unique enough to set them apart from one another, unless the game's throwing sisters at you, which just sounds awesome, but in the end it's more bad guys to kill. Colored lighting is used really intelligently to spread the look of the somewhat sparse levels as far as it can, but make no mistake, you're gonna look at a rock and go, I think I passed by here before, and then do it again and then again. Because in graphics, we also talk about level design, and here, it's ridiculously difficult at times. Get some graph paper ready, because until you find the map parts for a level, it can get twisty. Secret passages fill out the spectrum of explorable places, and in many locations verticality is a factor, with enemies shooting into the top of your surprisingly unprotected head at regular intervals. And that's when Guardians can get a bit clumsy looking, with you facing off against an army of 4 skeletons who are standing on a ledge above you and you're swinging at their feet, ex-podiatrist style, while you seem to attack into the air, but still end up hitting them. Now, spell effects in general are handled well, though a couple look a bit flat, like the Necromancer's Suck Your Brains and Life Juice spell, which almost looks like two-dimensional in its presentation, and there are a number of bugs where enemies can get stuck in a circling pattern as they try to find a path to you, and if that path is blocked by, say, one of several gates you've spent 2 hours trying to unlock, there's a good chance that they're going to look like they're doing the do-si-do as they sort of set and reset their position. Something to be patched for sure, and altogether, I would say, though the game looks pretty good, it's a solid first effort, but there are some issues. Sound, music, and voice. Oh! Now, as we all expect, sound is up first in this trilogy. It's actually surprisingly good, if a bit crunchy at times, and when the going gets hot and heavy, there is some middle spectrum mud that can occur from time to time. The use of surround sound is both excellently done and appreciated, because sooner rather than later, your team of fluffers is going to be spinning in circles trying to service a smattering of pissed off goblin goons that surround you on all sides. And by service, I of course mean send to their eternal slumber, give them a dirt nap, or make them eat the nethers. And all of those are done with the requisite screaming, fireball whooshing, and crackling ice sounds that you would expect from a magic-using game like this. Environmental audio is also good, with the eerie echoes of far-off chain doors sliding into locked and unlocked positions, or the marching footfalls of a group of skeletons Biloxi bluesing their hours away until you show up to send them a death message. As a package, it's average, with some muddy bits simply due to the activity and how it's presented, but also some really good bits when it comes to, let's say, the environmental audio. And on to music. I have to say, though it's lean, I was actually a little bit impressed, not by the few tracks or the excellent main menu music, but by the use of intelligent musical design for a game of this type. Now, titles of this size and team design many times suffer in this area, and though it's not replete with any large number of tracks at all, and when exploring you're usually left with either nothing or a somber sort of chord progression, what's there and what plays was actually very fitting for the title, and it didn't become that fifth party member that sort of holds you aloft and keeps you out of that depression of a deep, dark place. I like the fact that it sort of left you alone. It shows a good grasp of what's needed to further environment and gameplay and not get in the way. Additionally, since this game hinges on sound and hearing things at a great distance, the music really just needs to be somewhat out there but then die out and never get in the way, and that's what we have here. Thematically fitting, in the end it shuffles off to let the sound take the stage. Surely this is a case of better usage of music than actual writing of the music, as there is so little, but it needs to be pointed out. Voice. Oh look, they recorded the backseat of my Dodge Dart in the 1980s. Just grunts and groans and very little talking. Yeah, pretty much no talking actually. Gameplay. Okay, so you're a prison guard, and today the prisoners decided they were tired of the monster rape in the showers and the bad food, so they've escaped. Hilariously, it's your job to enter what can only be described as the worst possibly designed prison ever and trap, capture, and kill the leader prisoners who escaped. Furthering the difficulty is the fact that monsters have flooded the dungeon/prison because, as we know, prisoners and crotch spiders go hand in hand. The game starts you with choosing 4 characters for your party from a group of 4 types: the warrior, healer, mage, and rogue, and the game holds pretty hard to the typical damage dealers up front, ranged, and healers in the back. However, it's got one pretty cool twist that I'm going to get to in a bit. Now, once you pick your characters, you take a look at the skills list, and it's massive. Each of the 4 classes has 3 very large skill trees with building style skills and spending style skills, resulting in, as you play, sort of the oddest feeling of controlling a 4-person raid group in an MMO. And take that as you will, it actually turns out to be a fairly unique feel for combat. And then you're off into the maze. Now, the game is handled with some of the typical movement of games of its kind, though it does have an active dodge system and interrupt system, which basically means if you enter a fight, you watch the enemies very closely, and when they wind up to perform a move, you kick them in the balls and stun them, stopping the attack. You can also hit back and basically also leap away from an attacker. It's a unique system with both positives and negatives. I wasn't really in love with the movement. Now, the good stuff first. The interplay of skills and builders and the ability to play in both real time, like say an MMO, or pause the game like a Baldur's Gate with active pause works excellent. You can also queue your moves up to 3 at a time, lining up various attacks across enemies. Additionally, the game has introduced the fact that someone constantly healing your group is going to piss off the other bad guys, and they just want to smash your face into a bloody mess at the bottom of the maze floor. So casting healing spells deals threat, just like hitting someone in the face really hard. Now, this basically keeps the player engaged, bouncing threat from the healer back to the tank, or tanks, who've had their own threat generating moves. This leaves others like the rogue to fulfill their normal duties, which is seeing how many livers they can collect, and the magic users with the atypical frosty flinging and fiery fireball throwing that they normally do any of these type of games. Now, battles usually somewhat consist of either entering into it and starting out with a series of moves that you queue up in real time that you've found worked in the past, like the healer casting on the tank to keep him buffed, the tank smashing everyone in sight to remind them that he's the leader of the pack, the rogue rushing into the shadows to cut Achilles' tendons, and the magic user sitting back to lob spells. Then at any time, if something goes haywire, or if you kill an enemy, you can pause and move actions around again, queuing up 3 moves per character. Now, when leveling up, you get a point to buy a skill with, and as I said, there are just an extraordinary number of skills per class, resulting in very different builds. I went through with 2 tanks actually, a healer and a mage, and the 2 tanks perform dramatically different roles within the combat. Now, as you smash, steal, beat, stab, slice, freeze, suck your enemies' drive juices, and do other damage, they drop random items like capes, swords, axes, shields, rings, necklaces, and much needed sets of pants, which you can then outfit using a very easy to understand system of comparing item to item. It's a very detailed system going on here, and the basic circle of gameplay is actually fairly rewarding. However, I can't say I'm a fan of the later level designs. No, I'm not a fan at all. Some of what can only be described as sheer madman's desire to frustrate, with a series of switches opening doors several hundred feet away that really did a great deal to ruin my immersion. It felt far less like a dungeon or prison, and far more like that one map your nerdy dungeon master made you in 3rd grade on the back of a Peachy that he unceremoniously called Hope Crusher. The game has more than enough going for it in the technical combat aspects with the unique healer threat, Q, large number of skills and active pause and dodging that I would have loved to see those maps be a bit more realistic in sort of showing off a prison and a bit more exploratory. Though finding the occasional secret location was always actually really cool. Now, is it drastically different than titles like, let's say, Grimrock? No. But it's got some new additions that make it easily worth noticing within that genre. Now, lastly, the difficulty levels really do matter here, with higher levels requiring a fairly rigid adherence to proper party setup and using the active pause at all times, while lower settings allow for a much greater flexibility of function. It's nice actually to have both the difficulty and active pause work in concert like this and let you find that perfect spot for how you like to play. Fun factor. Well, I had a good time. Listen, I wasn't throwing a party while playing it, and at times the dungeon setups quite simply infuriated me. But that's just me. If you like that kind of thing, you're going to be in turn right forever heaven, and that's for sure. Now, that being said, I adored some of the level up moments. The boss battles with their little blurbs and the flexibility in both the normal and boss fighting mechanics. Watching someone send a smattering of snakes my way, totally stopping any exit and then hitting me time and again from far away while I dealt with their minions was actually really fun to try to work through. Walking into a room just rotten with the number of nasty poison shooting screaming mushrooms was sort of hilarious and strangely horrifying, not to mention really difficult to manage. It's also brought down by that already mentioned pathing bug that can crop up with some enemies, making things appear really unrealistic, where they seem to think you're a threat, then shrug and walk off, and then think better of it, but then, nah, you know what, he's not scary enough, turn away again, and then turn back at you and attack. For fans of games with enough crunch to break teeth, this is going to be right up your alley with the skills and the queue system though. So I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never talk about it again rating scale. Honestly, there's enough little bit of jankiness here that I'm going to go with a wait for a sale. The real issue here is that it's such a unique product within its already established genre, and the level design severely hampered my enjoyment enough that $20, which is a large investment for any gamer, especially when Grimrock is your main competitor, it looks better and performs better. However, if you have explored the ethereal reaches of Grimrock until you've uncovered every secret cranny, then you might actually want to check this out. It is a good game. There's just enough jank in there and enough uniqueness to some of the systems and how they work. There is a ton of content, but I'm not 100% sure many people will enjoy it for very long, especially with that kind of level design. It's for a unique gamer. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the review. If you did, hit thumbs up. If you didn't, hit thumbs down. And as always, peace out.